We're back. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Sponsored Content. I am your host. This is Spawn Storytime episode number 4. Today we're going over Spawn issue number 4. Before we do that, I want to go over a recap of last episode, Spawn issue number 3. In issue number 3, Spawn remembers his wife's name, Wanda, and he remembers Grandma Blake, which is Wanda's grandmother. Spawn, he's missing his family. He would like to see them. He wants to catch up. He's concerned, about waltzing back into their lives 5 years later, looking like a baked potato and like trying to, catch up with them at Starbucks and how difficult that's going to be. But he's curious about the Violator, and he thinks he's a young blood with these sort of powers. So we've pretty much gathered at this point that there's like a government-sponsored or orchestrated group of superheroes in this universe, and they're called Youngblood. And there's also a separate series that exists called Youngblood. But Spawn, he's just fired up at Malebolgia. Malebolgia explains why Spawn is a pawn for Hell's army, and then Spawn infiltrates the CIA, grabs Wanda's info, he threatens a skeevy perv. Malebolgia approves of this, of course, and then he finally meets Wanda, Terry, and Cyan, loses his mind, fights the Violator, and with having his heart ripped out and standing up, challenging the Violator to some more action, Violator was kind of perplexed as to how this happened, considering he thought Spawn was a human, and humans kind of need a heart to survive, and when someone else is holding it in their hand, there's an expectation that you're not going to stand right back up. So that's how we left off the last episode. So we're going to get right into issue 4 here. We'll take a nice look at this cover. Up to this point, my favorite cover has honestly probably been number 2, but I'm a huge fan of Violator, so I really dig this cover as well. But I think, so far number 2 is still my favorite cover. In issue number 4, we will see the conclusion to the 4-part story arc titled Questions, which has served to this point as an introduction to the Spawn world, including several characters and Spawn's basic situation of finding himself on Earth. We learn here for the past week or so that Lieutenant Colonel Al Simmons has been trying to cope with his new reality. So it's been about a week. He spent a few days, hanging out around the dumpster, maybe a few more days contemplating this and that. And now he is in a situation where the Violator is holding his still beating heart. Pretty gonzo, pretty visceral, pretty gnarly looking image here. And so Spawn, he's brought back from the dead. He sold his soul to the devil. He has these powers. He's not really sure what they are and how to use them. He keeps turning into a white guy. He's got all these problems. And as his memory is pieced back together, he gets to see his wife. So the devil does, Malebolgia's held up his end of the bargain, but he finds his wife, in a state of being married to his best friend. She's remarried, happily. She's got a child. This is something that Spawn learns he was unable to deliver. So he just feels awful. He has no wife, no identity, no pride. He feels like, nothing of a man. So now his heart, it's been torn apart emotionally and now physically, as we can see in graphic detail here. All right, so on our next page, we see a giant, awesome image of Spawn. He's still working up a really big fire hand here. He's got, the green gaping hole in his chest, Violator holding his heart here, and Spawn says, let's try that again. This time, why don't you actually try to do some real damage? All right, on the next page, now we can see that the Violator is just astonished. He can't believe it. He won't believe it. He shan't believe it. How did you get such power? You're a human being. You're a Hellspawn, so you're a human. Originally we brought you back. You guys don't generally have this type of power. He's like, you don't need your heart. Like, you don't need your damned heart. What's going on? I thought that I'd be stronger. So now he's pissed at Malebolgia. He slams the heart to the ground and he's like, I'm going to take this up with my boss because I want everybody to fear me. I'm supposed to be the superior. I really should be leading Hell's army. You shouldn't have this much power. I should have more power than you. And Spawn kind of looks at him. Again, still working up a fire hand. I feel like this is foreshadowing. And he doesn't really know what to say in the moment. So he reached down. He picks up his heart, still beating. Looks like maybe he's using some of his power to get that thing back in his chest. Probably where it belongs. And now he's like, pay attention, bitch, because look at this fire hand. It's getting really concentrated. It almost looks like, like a star or a sun maybe. And he says, I understand that Malebolgia has a deal with you. Maybe there's some issues with the terms of your contract. I don't have time to get into that right now. I have my own issues with him. I'd like to speak to him too, honestly. So if you know where he is or where I could find him, let me know. But right now, I'll be goddamn if you're going to come along while I'm sad and rip my whole ass heart out, throw it on the ground, and face like no consequences. Like, not gonna happen. So we see on this page here that Spawn, he's been working up this fire hand for like I don't know, 4 or 5 pages now, maybe. So he hits Violator with the force of 1,000 suns. Like, this is such an epic blast that we get like a parchment page explaining in detail, you know, the gore and the guts that are getting blasted on the brick wall. And as this is happening, it really hits Spawn, and he's like, wait a minute, you know, how did I even get a heart back in my chest? What's going on with my powers? You know, when is all this crazy shit going to end? Because this isn't like a normal Tuesday to get, you know, have a fight with a Violator in the middle of the street. So the insanity around him is still making him kind of question everything, although he is getting a little more used to it at this point. And we can obviously see he's a little bit more control of his power, at least as it's directed, you know, in a fight towards another, you know, equal. So here, Violator's basically like, look, dumbass, you know, you're not the only one that can survive an organ transplant. He's had this power before Spawn's had it. And, you know, if you're looking to play eye for an eye, you're kind of a dipshit because, you know, that's really not going to work out, as that's been demonstrated. So he throws Spawn into the wall. Spawn's kind of like, you know, what's your point? And Violator says, look, I'm only here to babysit you. I want to make sure that you're kind of, you know, you're working for our team. So, like, we don't want you to stray. We don't want you to, like, not use your power and try to chill out and be a nice guy or whatever. So I'm kind of here to push you along and try to kind of keep that evil streak alive. So here's a continuation of finally our epic battle between Violator and Spawn. They're jawing at each other a bit. And essentially the Violator chomps off Spawn's arm, and they're kind of dismembering each other. They're ripping limbs off. Limbs are going flying. It looks like they're losing an arm. And then we see, you know, enough. And sure enough, here, Big Daddy Bulge shows up, and he says literally, like, look, I'm your daddy. You guys are my children. Like, I'm in control. So I need you guys to chill out, basically, because you're both immortal, or essentially you're not going to die. So kicking the shit out of each other in the street, all it's doing is bringing attention. And obviously the devil's there now, so there's a lot of attention being had. Malebolgia waxes on for a bit in the next page about essentially what's going on between heaven and hell. That, you know, his mission, of course, is the destruction of God. And so he's got like 8 billion souls right now, but he probably needs that many more. So that's why Spawn is on their team. So Spawn's, again, really good at being bad. So as soon as Spawn turned away from God, that gave Malebolgia the opportunity to kind of coerce him to the dark side. That's not an inherent capability that Malebolgia has. He has to allow somebody to turn away from God before he's able to intervene. So he just continues on and on about his army, and he's just really like into himself and kind of egotistical, but he says Spawn is the perfect candidate to be like a general in his army, and he needs Spawn out there like getting more souls for hell. And so, you know, he goes on to explain his power. So the amount of power that Spawn has is not unlimited, because of course that would be stupid for Malebolgia to do that. So Spawn has a pool of power, and if it's depleted, then he basically dies again. You know, he gets condemned to hell. You know, his soul is definitely in Malebolgia's court at that point. And if he doesn't use his power, he essentially can stay on Earth longer, so he can get a little bit more done if he doesn't use his power. But that's kind of the situation that he's in and the conundrum that he's facing. All right, next page, Malebolgia is leaning over all creepy here, and he's like, you guys are kind of pathetic and predictable. You humans, you know, you're back all for love, and obviously, you know, look where it's gotten you. Malebolgia goes on to explain how this is a win-win situation for him. So either, you know, he depletes his power and Spawn dies again, which, you know, ultimately gives him his soul over to Malebolgia, or Spawn's out here killing people and sending those souls to hell, just building an army even faster. So Malebolgia's just like, look, now that I've explained, you know, the rules of the game, I'll give you a new arm, and I need you to go out here and make some money for daddy. So now that Malebolgia's taking care of Spawn, you know, because Spawn and Violator are sharing sort of this like petulant sibling, you know, situation right now, he's pissed, and he's like, yo, what about me? How about something for what I'm doing? Like, I'm out on the street, you know, I'm getting shit done. I'm getting your coffee, you know, I'm setting the appointments. I'm doing what, you know, I'm babysitting Spawn. I'm doing all this stuff. And, you know, he thinks that he's doing a good job by kind of killing all these mobsters and leading people down a trail, you know, there, and maybe a red herring. But he basically says, look, what do I get? Because I'm out there doing my job, right? And of course, Malebolgia, he disagrees. He says, look, actually, you know, you're kind of being a piece of shit. You're messing everything up. Malebolgia says that Actually, what Violator has done is he's made all the bad guys ultra cautious, and they're not really out killing and maiming and doing what they do that sends the filthy souls down to hell. So, in all actuality, what Violator is doing has been counterproductive, and as a result, he's grounded. So, the way that works is Malebolgia locks Violator into Danny DeVito form, and so that's like the worst situation for Violator because he can't change forms into his crazy like true form and do all his like really nasty shit. And instead he gets locked into Danny DeVito. So that's a little handicap to say the least. Violator whines about his situation, just going on and on about being stuck in this form and how he thought he was doing a good job and he's not getting a squat, for his effort. Spawn's just kind of standing there looking all cool and he's not saying anything. All right, on our next page, Spawn's just kind of wandering around. Him and Violator sort of part ways. The police are kind of alerted to the situation that's been going on with the battle and the giant ass devil showing up. So Spawn's kind of taking on a disguise, looking like Dick Tracy or something here, walking home all casual, and he sees these kids. They make a mention of superhero, and he kind of freaks out because he thinks that he's been noticed, and Spawn with his powers is starting to question what he is, and the only thing that he knows that's similar is this sort of young blood government superhero program. So he's basically afraid he's been discovered by these kids, and turns out they're just trying to get a good look at Savage Dragon, who's on the TVs there behind Spawn. So the kids are going on, being impressed. Think it's really cool to see these superheroes on TV, and Spawn's just kind of walking away, trying to get back to his home in the alleyway. On our last page here, 2:36 in the morning, Wanda's sleep shattered. She kind of has a nightmare about Al, her former husband, her ex-husband, her now deceased husband, who is Spawn. So it says like, basically, it was almost if he was kind of reaching out to her, but she couldn't do anything, and that he was, crying, and he was kind of hurt that she wasn't there, and she kind of thinks she's going crazy, and, these dreams are kind of recurring. She's not really sure why she keeps dreaming these sort of things, and she wants it to stop, but, she just says that things seem very real. And that brings us to a close on issue number 4. It's the fourth and final part of the Question Story arc, a 4-issue introduction to the Spawn universe, introducing several characters and our plot. This has been sponsored content with Spawn Storytime episode number 4. I hope you guys stick around. Thanks for stopping by.